will begin.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Aurélien Collin and I will present my work as a PhD student. And I'm working both at the IMT Atlantic but also at CLS, an enterprise specialized in remote sensing. And this presentation is called Segmentation of Metocean Processes using SAR-Image. Before talking specifically about the segmentation, I will first quickly present the SAR observations that we use, and also the different Metocean processes that we study, and why we think that the segmentation could be useful for a wide range of applications. After that, I will explain the framework in which we work. I mean by this fully supervised learning, and I will present the results that we can obtain. And finally, I will show that we can infer additional information, not only semantic segmentation. We can infer additional information from the SAR observations. So the data that we used for SAR observation, in particular wave mode, it's observation of 20 by 20 kilometers of ocean areas, and almost 40,000 of them were compiled 2 years ago into 10 classes by Chen Wang, a PhD student at the IFOMER. And as you can see in the figure, these classes contain atmospherical processes such as convective cells or wind streaks, and also more oceanic processes such as icebergs or biological sinks. So that's why we call this Metocean processes. And they have a wide range of diversity. They have a wide diversity of range, with iceberg being very small and low wind area being quite big, and also a diversity of appearance that make all of them quite distinctive. In this data set, so this data set is called 10GOP SAR-WVV. Each observation covers an area of 20 by 20 kilometers at a resolution of 50 meters per pixel. And it was later used for categorization, which is a task where we associate a single label to each image. And as you can see in the confusion matrix here, the performance of the categorizer was quite high, with an overall accuracy of almost 83%. However, there is a notable confusion between, for example, atmospheric front and wind cell. Normally, all the good categorization should be on the diagonal, but we can see here confusion between atmospheric front and cells. I will explain why later. And if we search manually in the 10GOP dataset, we can find observations that do not respect an assumption made when we work with categorization datasets. It is that the classes must be mutually exclusive. But here you can see an atmospheric front separating low wind area and pure sun waves. There is also the case of wind cell. We add a lot of confusion between wind cells and atmospheric front, but it's partly because there is often atmospheric front with co-occurring with wind cells. In the case of the iceberg class, we can observe that the actual icebergs only cover something like 1% of the observation, with the main parts of the image being depicting pure sun waves. And of course, there is also an example of independent phenomena occurring at the same time. Here we can see a few icebergs, 4 or maybe 5 icebergs. And we have also an atmospheric front and a background of pure sound waves. So it will be interesting to be able to do a multi-level categorization, which is not possible yet because the 10GOP only contain one label per image. And something that will be even more interesting will be to get a segmentation, in fact, the localization of each phenomenon pixel per pixel. So this is what we call the segmentation. So here the segmentation of the atmospheric front and the location of each icebergs. There are two main frameworks that we can follow to obtain the segmentation. Either we work in weakly supervision with a large quantity of image level information, such as those contained in the 10GOP dataset. And the idea behind is that with enough data, here we have 40,000 samples. And with enough data, we assume that we can recover implicit information used by the annotator during the creation of the dataset. But a more direct way to get the segmentation is simply to annotate new samples at a pixel level. You can see such of this annotation here, with each color associated with a phenomenon, with the color chart here. And the black area or regions where I didn't annotate any phenomena because sometimes it's quite complete to say what is happening. I will not detail the weak supervision method because all of them were outperformed by the fully supervised method that you can see in green here. On this plot, this is the performance of each algorithm depending on the number of ground truths that we provide. So for weakly supervised methods, we have a lot more quantity of ground truths since we work with 10GOP. But for the fully supervised method, we need to manually annotate segmentation, which is quite long. And we can project that with even more annotation, we can increase the quality of the segmentation. You can see this predicted segmentation, so the output of our algorithm in the last column of this plot, and each phenomenon is quite well segmented, but for some it's quite blurry. For example, for iceberg, the segmentation cover a lot more place than the ground truth, and it's the same with the fronts where they smudge a little. So for the model that we use to get this segmentation, it's quite simple. In fact, it's a model that is well known in the literature. It's the UNet model. And here it take as input an image at 100 meter per pixel, so it's the SAR observation, and it outputs a segmentation map of only 400 meter per pixel. The reason for this asymmetry is that the quality of my manual segmentation that serves as ground truth, and also the inherent blurriness of the frontier between some phenomena. It's quite difficult to assign a frontier, for example, for one sail. So these two reasons. One, the clarity of the segmentation, and two, the blurriness of the frontier make it quite. It does not justify an increase of the output resolution. So we keep 400 meters per pixel, and it also simplify the model. I'll continue. I will pass quite quickly on this slide. The idea is that with the segmentation, it is possible to identify the observation that contains multiple phenomena, which was not possible before. So, for example, on the right, this is a plot where we search in the 10GOP dataset. We search for the images maximizing the segmentation of, for example, icebergs and biological slicks. Or we search for the sample maximizing both biological slicks and wind cells. So we can search for the co-occurrences of some phenomena, and we can also search for image. For example, with the highest count of iceberg. And we can say if there is one iceberg, two icebergs, or even more icebergs. And this is something that was not possible before, since we only got the categorization. So this is the result for wave mode image, so of area of 20 by 20 kilometers. And we can also work with what we call interferometric white source. This kind of observation covers a much larger area, and is usually done near the coast. For the wave mode, we work in open ocean, but with white source, it's more common to be near the coast. And with appropriate pre-processes, we can run the same model, the model that we learned on wave mode, we can apply them on interferometric white source. And the pre-processing is mainly a normalization in regard with the incidence angle of the satellite. I will now zoom to some interesting areas to highlight some behavior of our model. Here you can see a large area of wind cells, which are segmented in gray, and they are quite well segmented. We can also see a clear atmospheric front, be in the east of Corsica, but also in the southwest. So we are able to quite well delimit this front. The sky blue areas that you can see in the west are wind streaks, and we can see that for this region they are quite well segmented too. But in fact, and this is where we got one of the first problem of this framework, is that if we zoom on the picture, we can see that behind the streaks we also have pure sun rays, and this means that we would want to, in the future, to have an indication of both the streaks and the pure sound waves. If we zoom in the Gulf of Genoa, we observe that the network spotted iceberg, which is impossible in the Mediterranean Sea. And in fact, sorry, in fact, they are not iceberg, but ships. Ships and have almost the same signature. This highlights that different phenomena can have the same appearance. So yeah, I will drink a little water. This highlights that different phenomena can have the same appearance, and this is particularly important to take into account all these kind of phenomena. So here the ships having the same signature as icebergs. We can also see on this picture that the iceberg segmentation is always surrounded by pure ozone waves. And this is due to a bias in our dataset, since most icebergs were appearing on a background of pure ozone waves. In 10GeoP, there are very rarely iceberg with, for example, a microcorrective cell or iceberg with wind streaks, which is possible, but they do not appear in the dataset. And this bias is reproduced in the segmentation. So we have to be careful about this bias. Now we can also look in the areas where the segmentation failed. And here we can quite easily see that it's wind streak, but the model was not able to segment this area because this wind streak are bigger than everything that the model saw during the training, because there is 10 kilometers, around 10 kilometers between each streaks. But since the wave mode observation on which the model was trained were of 20 by 20 kilometers, we didn't have samples of such large wind streaks, so the network is not able to predict these patterns. And finally, in the east of Sardinia, we can see an area with orographic winds, and this phenomenon is caused by the mountains on the island. And obviously, they do not appear on wave mode observation because in wave mode, we've acquired observation in open oceans at a few hundred kilometers of the coast. So we don't have this phenomenon that are caused by islands. And so it's difficult to be exhaustive to have all the phenomena. And additionally, I would also like to highlight that we can see some horizontal streaks on the observation, in addition to the orographic wind. So it means yet again that we will need a way to have a multi-label per pixel segmentation, which is mainly to annotate our sample with multi-label segmentation. This slide recapitulates what I already said, and as you can see, the phenomena contained in 10GeoP are usually well segmented, even on white source acquisition, that are a little different. And this observation can be processed in a few seconds. The whole interferometric white source was processed in 10 seconds, around 10 seconds. And so it's really quick. And however, there are some issues to solve for example, the representativity of the ground truth. We saw that with the wind streaks that were that have a really big wavelength in the white source observation. There is also a necessity to increase the number of segmented phenomena, for example, including the orographic wind. And finally, we will also have to annotate the cases where we have multiple phenomena to be able to retrieve a multi-label per pixel of observation. There is also a possibility to use a wavelet decomposition, but it's really too recent to have result for this, but it's something that we can consider. I will now show that the semantic segmentation that I presented here is not the only information that can be extracted from SAR images. I will be quite quick about that. But the first of this additional application is the collocation of SAR images with weather radar. Here it's a collocation with NexRad. Here on the first image, we have a SAR observation of Okinawa, I believe. And at the bottom, we have the collocation with an overlay of the NexRad reflectivity, which indicate the precipitations. And this reflectivity can be learned by the network. And here we only have to transfer the weights of the semantic segmenter. And we only train the last segmentation. This means that we can add the reflectivity, in fact, as the 11th class of our segmenter. And here you can see the result of this combination. Here I only kept the Wenzel output of the segmenter in gray and the radar reflectivity in red. And we can see that what was segmented as Wenzels includes cold drops, and this area or place where there are a descending wind burst, which give the kind of crater that you can see on the SAR image, but they are not always associated with precipitation that appear in red in the segmentation. So we are able to have a more in-depth understanding of this Wenzel phenomenon. And I will just quickly speak about that. We also try to do the regression of the wind speed and of the wind direction, that are also information that we can obtain from the SAR image. And here it's a collocation of TenGeoP. The model is trained with a collocation of TenGeoP with ECMWF, which stands for European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecast. And the same way as earlier, we run a model that was trained of TenGeoP. We trained this. We run this model on a white source image. So you can see that we are able to get the semantic segmentation, an emulation of NexRad reflectivity, a regression of the wind speed, and also more or less the wind direction, but only if there is enough wind speed, because else the wind direction does not mean anything. To conclude, I would like to highlight that once again that the segmentation dataset only contains 1,000 samples, and still we were able to obtain an accurate segmentation of our 10 Meteosian processes. We also demonstrated the superiority of the fully supervised learning on this particular task. And we show that there is a lot of information that can extract from the SAR observation. So there is a lot of possibility to work with this kind of data. Thank you for your attention. I will be happy to try to answer questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So can you go back, please, to slide 14?
This one?
Yes. Yeah. So here you're talking about transfer learning, right?
Yes.
Yes. So how do you deal with the different dimensions when you do transfer learning? If you have like input output different dimensions.
Alors, in fact, I have retrieve the collocation, but to train the network as extracted tiles of also 20 by 20 kilometers, and also at 100 meters per pixel, so that the dimensions of this new data set will be the same as the one on which we trained the semantic segmenter. So here we apply on a white source, but during the training, it's only trained on 20 by 20 kilometers and 100 meters per pixel in both cases. So.
So you have like an extra layer of training, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It can be seen at just an 11th class, but except for this last convolution, the model is the same, and it has the same weights.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes.
So you use the U-Net for the segmenting the image. So
yes.
In a precipitation case, what kind of class do you have?
Sorry?
In a precipitation case, in a last slide.
For the precipitation, it's the same model. So we use the same architecture where we take as input an image of 100 meter per pixel, and the output segmentation is also 400 meter per pixel, and the same as for the manual segmentation, where the frontier of the phenomena are quite blurry. It's the same with the Nexrad reflectivity, because there can be some problem with the collocation. The collocation is not always at the same second. So the signature precipitation on the SAR image and the precipitation recorded by Nexrad are also a little different. So we also work at 400 meter per pixel, because there was no justification to have an even higher resolution.
So in a rainfall, the value itself is continuous. So you discretize this value to with some threshold.
For this figure, I don't understand.
For the rainfall precipitation.
Yes.
So you apply the segmentation to the precipitation. In Okinawa case, I remember. So you have the. So this one shows the precipitation. The second image.
It's the water reflectivity. So it should be it should indicate the precipitation, but there can be some phenomenon. For example, if the rain evaporates in the atmosphere, it will not go until the surface, and we won't be able to see it on the image. But in most cases, it should be the precipitation in most cases.
So my next talk is about the precipitation, so I'm going to discuss later. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Aurelian, the
Yes.
question was about this variable, the reflectivity is a continuous real number, is that right?
Yes.
So how did you apply the same network to this continuous variable?
Alors, in fact, it's true that it's continuous, and I just have to change the yes, it's true that it's not exactly the same model, because on the last correlation, it's not a softmax activation. It's a sigmoid activation, so we are able to get a continuous value. However, it's still a preliminary work, so I did not try to get the actual value of the water reflectivity, but more an indication of if there are a reflectivity recorded or not. So it's a mix of a continuous value and a mask. So I didn't work. I didn't try to reproduce exactly the value of reflectivity that we got from the radar. I'm not yet at this point.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to the second talk. Thank you very much, Aurelian.